Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Dominion's 4 Thrones of Ascension mod and map showcase. I'm Marcus Aurelius, and this is Kirkostaculis, Everyone's a Comedian. This is a mod nation based on clowns and circus performers. Kirkostaculis is a vibrant and colorful nation, populated predominantly by humans but ruled by powerful clowns. Clowns are long-lived creatures who, with the passing of eons, can grow to tremendous sizes. They are primarily interested in the study of comedy, a concept which has immense significance both culturally and theologically. For many years, these clowns have been content to study comedy at their own pace. Now, with the disappearance of the Pantocrator, an opportunity has arisen for a great comedian to ascend to godhood and perpetrate the greatest joke of all. This fact has given clown culture a sense of urgent focus, as not only must they decisively seize divinity, but their greatest minds must also come together to settle the question of what the greatest joke of all actually is. Now, this nation was put together by Itsmu, and it's a race of mostly humans, circus performers really, and clowns of various sizes. As the clowns age and become more powerful, they grow in size. Their military consists of, well, as I just said, basically athletic humans and sacred clowns. And their magic is a huge focus on astral, with some fire, air, and water to round it out. Priests are pervasive, and what that means is pretty much all of the clowns are some level of priest. Level 3 priests are very easy to come by, and as you'll see when I go over the nation, there's also a way to get a level 5 priest. But first, I would like to show you the pretender choices. Well, the new ones anyway. There is the Master of Custard. Okay, now he is a fire and air-based pretender who generates gems. I'm not going to read the whole description, but you can do so by pausing the screen. Then there is the Master of Seltzer, who is a water and astral flavored clown pretender. There is the Shiny Red Nose, which has some astral and innate spellcasting. Again, you can read the description. It's too long for me to read out. And finally, there's the one that I chose, which is the gigantic clown head. It's the head of a monstrous clown, born at the dawn of time when monsters and giants roamed the world. Its movements caused thunderous honking, and it inspired nervous laughter wherever it went. And that is the pretender choice that I have made. So let us leave now. Alright, so we're going to play an existing game where I have done many things. Alright, so here is the clown nation of Kirkostaculis, but first I want to take a moment to show us the lovely map that is called Seaside Valley. And this is by Dalloway. It is as you can see, a map that connects on the sides, but not up and down. So kind of like well, not like like Halo, basically, if you want to think of it in those terms, like a ring world. And it's obviously hand-drawn, and I like it a lot. I just like the charming nature of it. If you go to the Dominion's 4 forums, there aren't a ton of maps being produced, but the ones that are generally very good. So this nation, Kirkostaculis, what's it about? Well, let's take a look. I'll go over the commanders first. Your scout is a mime. And the idea behind a mime is that some human beings develop individual skills that the clowns all have, but since humans are not clowns, they have to focus on only one of those skills. And so the mime is a human who has mastered one of the basic arts of rudimentary clowning, which is mime. They must never speak and entertain people through their use of bold and deliberate body motions, acting out impossible scenarios such as picking up an invisible box, being trapped inside an invisible box, and trying to push an extremely heavy and invisible box. Mimes are lightly armored and stealthy. They wield an invisible box, an imaginary weapon, the effectiveness of which is directly proportional to the confidence of the mime. And as you can see here, they are mute. Then we have the magician, who isn't really a magician at all, but actually more like a stage magician. A stage magician. Although true mastery of the clown arts is beyond even the most skillful of humans, some men and women still manage to become successful in specific areas. Magicians are humans who have mastered the skill of misdirection. Despite their title, few magicians have any skill in actual magic, focusing instead on sleight of hand, trickery, object manipulation, and showmanship. Clowns are especially fond of good magicians, and will often hand administrative duties over to magicians of even moderate renown, so that they may focus their attention on comedy. All magicians know basic illusions, and their routines generate small amounts of unrest, as spectators gawp and murmur and insist that the magician do that last part again, only slower this time. They cause unrest, and they have glamour, and they are stealthy. There's a 10% chance that they will get one path in air. So, I guess you could potentially use them as a way to, if you want to create one in a newly conquered province that has a fort, you could maybe get a lab out of them if you're lucky, but probably not. Then there is the Lion Tamer, the basic leadership unit. Lion Tamers are humans who delight crowds by cowing animals using items wholly inappropriate for the task. Tree branches, potted plants, wooden stools, wet rags, handfuls of spices, and other smaller animals are all frequently used by Lion Tamers during their performances, often to unexpectedly good effect. Clowns have a great deal of respect for successful lion tamers, and have steered the profession away from recklessness in recent years. While the popular adage, the best lion tamers rile the scariest animals with the stupidest tools, is still ultimately very true, lion tamers are discouraged from taking truly dangerous risks. Injuries only spoil the show and bring the whole profession into disrepute. Lion tamers are center stage entertainers capable of leading sizable performances and are especially good at leading animals. This is important because you have some animal units here. Then you have the Ringmaster, who is basically a better commander with an inspirational bonus. Ringmasters are humans with exceptional skills in both showmanship and administration. Their remit tends to be extremely broad, and clowns will often entrust competent ringmasters with responsibilities ranging from decision-making on event lists at village fetes to the management and oversight of provincial taxation. Especially competent ringmasters will even assist clowns in the study of comedy itself, although they tend to provide only practical assistance, as ringmasters themselves are not especially funny. They are, however, highly charismatic, and are at ease leading even the most complex of performances. Now we're getting into the magic users. We start off with a Fireeater. Fireeaters are humans who have become skillful in one of the specialist arts of advanced clowning, mayhem. Due to recent cultural imperatives, serious study of mayhem by clowns has fallen to the wayside, owing to its association with dark clowning, which is now unpopular, and tragic clowning, which has been forbidden. Fireeaters, being humans, are free from such societal demands, and can pursue whatever vocation they would like. Fireeaters work primarily with fire, and are able to manipulate it in ways that delight and distress in equal amounts. Fireeaters do not consume traditional victuals, subsisting instead on a diet of brightly colored fluids of questionable safety and unquestionable volatility. As a consequence of this, they tend to die spectacularly in combat. They have a fire flare attack, and a 25% chance of getting 2 fire. They also don't have to eat, which is good. Then we have the Bearded Lady, who in my experimentation was my go-to researcher, because the cost to research ratio was pretty good, and they are fortune tellers, so reduce bad events. They have 1 astral and a chance of another astral, or water, or air. Bearded ladies are human women that have grown extremely long beards, either to shock or to amuse or to challenge society's notions of ideal feminine beauty. Clowns find bearded ladies to be marvelously entertaining, and assist them in taking on roles in society that might otherwise be denied to them, either because of their sex or because of their facial hair. More traditional regions can find the notion of bearded ladies wielding administrative powers to be unnerving, even appalling, but clowns just think that makes it even funnier. To enhance their transgressiveness, bearded ladies are encouraged to take an interest in frightening or unseemly practices such as dowsing and trail reading, divination, undrowning, and cavorting under the stars. And I'd like to say that Itsmu did a wonderful job in these descriptions, providing a thematic explanation for the special abilities that each of the units have. Like, for example, the Need Not Eat with the Fire Swallower. Then we have a Twirler. A Twirler is ambidextrous with dark power, dark vision, and a patrol bonus with 1 fire and 1 air. Twirlers are human performers who wield colorful ribbons, batons, chains, wheels, children, hoops, or ropes. These objects are twirled and whirled in hypnotizing displays to the delight of passers-by. Twirlers are masterful object manipulators, and especially confident twirlers will set their twirled objects alight. This is more dangerous than mundane twirling, but makes the performance much more beautiful to watch, particularly when performed in darkness. Twirlers are not traditional center stage performers, but they possess excellent showmanship abilities and are comfortable performing at odd hours. This makes them great patrollers, and a twirler strolling between villages during the darkest hours of the night is not only a common sight, but for many villagers, a greatly reassuring one. Again, a wonderful explanation for their special abilities. The last human that we get to is the armless woman. She is a death mage, and this is important because there is a national spell summon that can only be cast by 1 death and 1 astral, which you have a 50% chance of getting. Otherwise, you'll get 2 death and could skelly spam, for example. She's also sacred, the only non-clown unit that is, and is stealthy. Armless women are human women who are missing both of their arms, either by birth or by misadventure. They make interesting sideshow attractions, and spectators are invited to watch the armless woman carry out ordinary daily chores using only her legs and feet. In Kirkostaculis, every successful armless woman is also a comedian. Or comedienne, I guess, right? Since some people become very uncomfortable at the thought of laughing at a woman with no arms, armless women have become subjects of great interest to dark clowns, who specialize in black humor. Dark clowning is currently an unpopular specialty among clowns, so the handful of dark clowns still active have taken to teaching their arts to armless women instead. This affords armless women the incredible honor of being the only humans to be taught comedy by clowns. As might be expected, armless women are therefore notorious for their razor-sharp wit, their acidic worldview, and their incredibly dark comedy routines. These routines tread a very fine line between unbearably funny and unbearably uncomfortable. Armless women wield great authority in Kirkostaculis and are the only humans considered sacred. They are sometimes able to sneak through foreign lands. Outside of a show, many people will intentionally avoid looking at them. And I like how they have not only a kick, but also a cruel joke as their attack. And finally, we get to the clowns. The first clown is the physical clown, that is the big hat. He is, of course, sacred and a priest level 1. All clowns are resistant to blunt force trauma. This one causes unrest and has chaos power. I think all the clowns have chaos power. You'll notice he has clown attire and a big hat, plus a comically large kick, rubber hose, and a pie. The clowns have pie ranged weapons. Rarely, a clown is born who is simply bad at clowning. These clowns who prove totally inept at every skill in all 3 major schools of clowning are asked to dedicate themselves to the simplest and least demanding of all clowning activities, wearing a very large hat. That is funny because of how large it is. These clowns are called big hats, so called because of how big their hat is. In recent years, big hats have become central figures in the cultural mythology of clowns due to Bongo the Great's realization that, conceptually, a clown who must wear a large hat because of how bad he is at clowning is intrinsically very funny. Consequently, big hats are paradoxical figures who are amusing in direct proportion to how funny they aren't. Some clowns have come to believe that big hats therefore represent transcendental comedy and pay them special reverence, while others believe they're just big stupid clowns wearing big stupid hats. All clowns are sacred to the people of Kirkostaculis, and this is especially true of big hats, although they do tend to cause some unrest in whichever province they are located. A big hat's big hat is big enough to fit another smaller hat underneath, a practice which is thoroughly encouraged. I feel a lot of Douglas Adams when I read these descriptions. Like, Itsmu kind of has that same British humor, I guess, that you would find in like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. So now there are the two basic types of clowns. There's the first clown and the 13th clown. The first clown is air and astral, level 2 priest, with 100% chance of air astral and perhaps fire. Once a clown has mastered the clown arts, he may choose to study comedy itself, becoming either a first clown or a 13th clown. First and 13th clowns are hierarchically equal, but fulfill very different roles in both clowning routines and society in general. The interplay between first and 13th clowns is impossible to ever understand fully, or even partially, owing to clowning's chaotic, nonsensical, and often contradictory forms of pedagogy. Humans tend to consider the relationship using the rule of the pie. If a clown throws a pie at another clown, it is always thrown by a first clown, and always hits a 13th clown. While this simple dictum misses much of the rich nuance found in the relationship between first and 13th clowns, it does provide a simple basis for understanding. A first clown is a powerful force in any display of clowning, acting as direct perpetrator of mischief rather than the comical victim of mischief. They tend to utilize air magic to aid them in the creation of illusions, the performance of ridiculous acrobatic stunts, and the throwing of pies at 13th clowns. Their devotion to the formal study of comedy grants them significant priestly authority, and they are effective leaders of any given performance. All clowns are sacred to the people of Kirkostaculis, and first clowns are no exception. You'll notice they have a leadership of 40. But then we go to the 13th clown, and you'll notice they don't have a good leadership. Why is that? Well, they are water mages and astral mages, otherwise they are the same. But 13th clowns are lovable underdogs in displays of clowning, acting as the comical victim of mischief rather than the direct perpetrator of mischief. While 13th clowns are encouraged to play unlucky or unfortunate characters, they must always be funny and must not allow themselves to become tragic characters, as tragic clowning has been forbidden. They tend to utilize water magic to aid them in managing the huge amounts of pie cream and seltzer water that is frequently blasted their way. Their devotion to the formal study of comedy grants them significant priestly authority, but they do not typically lead performances, and are poor leaders as a result. All clowns are sacred to the people of Kirkostaculis, including 13th clowns. Then we get to the Impossible Clown. The Impossible Clown has a comically large kick, and they are non-magical. Clowns are an exceptionally long-lived species, and they never stop growing. Very old clowns can grow to enormous proportions. The Impossible Clown is a clown of such advanced age that it has grown impossibly large, making it much funnier than an equally skilled clown of more ordinary stature. Despite its age and considerable skill in clowning, the Impossible Clown has chosen to forego serious study of comedy in favor of simply clowning around. This means that it lacks the religious authority and academic prowess of more erudite clowns, but its age and experience nonetheless make it an expert on every aspect of physical clowning. All clowns are sacred to the people of Kirkostaculis, and the Impossible Clown is no exception. So then we have the two main mages. We have the clown Paramount, which is air, water, and astral, but a level 3 priest, which is important, and another chance of air, water, astral, or fire, and a 10% chance of additional air, water, or astral. A clown who has lived for hundreds of years dedicated to the serious study of comedy will eventually master all of the skills of both first clowns and 13th clowns. At this point, they will begin to probe totally new and unexplored avenues of comedy. These clowns are called clowns Paramount, and they are among the funniest creatures that have ever lived. A clown Paramount's thrown pie will always strike his target square in the face, and the pie is guaranteed to slide slowly off that face and into the target's overlarge pants. A clown Paramount will always land on his buttocks, no matter what height he falls from, kind of like a cat, only with legs, and will produce a comically loud honking noise whenever he does so. A clown Paramount can twist himself into any position, juggle hundreds of objects at a time, and successfully pull a hat out of a rabbit. A clown Paramount is the undisputed star of any given performance, and is beloved by everyone. All clowns are sacred to the people of Kirkostaculis, and clowns Paramount are no exception. And finally, the big bad Mamma Jamma, the Ancient Clown. 1 air, 1 water, 2 astral, 3 holy, with 3 100% picks, of air, water, astral, and the first pick has a chance of fire as well. They also are negative inspirational and only have 5 leadership, so you definitely do not want them leading any armies. As clowns progress beyond thousands of years into age, they leave behind mortal comedy entirely. Not all clowns are cut out for the study at this level, and some abandon serious academics in order to return to a simple life of clowning around. Those few who remain pursue highly theoretical branches of comedy, and competition between ancient clowns becomes uncharacteristically fierce and competitive. Every ancient clown knows every other ancient clown, and nobody wants to be the least funny member of such a ruthless and insular cadre. Ancient clowns must be constantly aware of even minor developments in comedy, cannot ever misunderstand a joke or fail to appreciate a reference. And they must ensure that they remain in on the joke and do not become the butt of the joke. Ancient clowns communicate almost entirely using systems of reflexive, acausal meta-irony, employing styles of comedy that haven't been invented yet to make fun of jokes that haven't been made yet. They represent the absolute bleeding edge of comedy and are terrifyingly funny, assuming you can understand them. Ancient clowns are by far the most powerful of all clowns, in terms of religious authority, comedy prowess, academic insight, and administrative rule. They make dreadful leaders, however, due to the difficulty with which lesser creatures have understanding them. All clowns are sacred, and ancient clowns are no exception. And on to the troops. We have circus monkeys, circus lions, and circus elephants. I will not read the descriptions to you, but you can look at them. They are all, of course, undisciplined, but obviously they work well with a lion tamer. Then we start off with a sideshow. A sideshow is just your basic human militia unit, but however is undisciplined. In Kirkostaculis, everyone wants to be a star. Everyone believes that they are the most talented, the most outrageous, and the most interesting person in their respective hometown. People will leap at the opportunity to get themselves onto a stage and impress an audience. Most of these people become sideshows at best, ordinary humans with ordinary talents, or more frequently, no talents at all. The vast majority of these acts are a terrible bore, and have no place on even the most generous event list. But you try telling that to the amazing burping man, or Nine-Finger Pete, the man with only 9 fingers, or Screeching Rosa, the girl who can't sing. However, if you are sort of good and you are not a sideshow, you will instead become an idiot. In Kirkostaculis, everyone wants to be a star, as we already mentioned. The more deluded hopefuls go on to become sideshows, convinced that some minor aspect of their person has destined them for greatness, no matter how mundane or imaginary that aspect might be. Others, however, abandon all pretense of talent entirely, instead becoming idiots, who hope to entertain people by being purposefully foolish. Idiots tell intentionally bad jokes, or tell unintentionally bad jokes intentionally poorly. They stick their arms into wasps' nest, try to drink their ale while standing on their heads, and pay people to kick them between the legs. The only goal of an idiot is to get a laugh, however meager, and they are ready and willing to perform the most dangerous and degrading feats in order to get it. Clowns are more likely to pay attention to idiots than to sideshows, as idiots are more likely to be funny. Good idiots can go on to become buffoons, but a good idiot is hard to find. And one thing I'd like to add to all of this is that I really do appreciate Itsmu's social commentary. I mean, obviously these are fictional and funny descriptions, but if you kind of read between the lines, it's almost like he has some political things to say as well, which I really appreciate. After that, you start getting into decent units. You have the acrobat, who is a formation fighter, and I'm not going to read all these, but you can kind of read them yourself. Then you have the contortionist, who kind of to me looks like a ostrich, but is actually a person. This is their arms, this is a woman, this is her head, and this is her body and feet. And contortionists are interesting because they are good bodyguard units. Not exactly sure why, except that perhaps they can contort around whomever they're guarding. And then we have buffoons, who are basically idiots that give a standard bonus. Then you have 2 ranged units. You have the juggler, who juggles clubs and throws them, And then you have the knife thrower, who does the same, only with knives. And again, the descriptions are all really, really funny, but we're already at 25 minutes, so I'm just not going to read them. But definitely pause the screen to read them yourself. Then we have the unicyclist, who I guess you can consider a cavalry unit, even though it doesn't have the hoof attack. They're obviously much faster on the battlefield. I didn't recruit a lot of them because they would outrange my other units. These guys are awesome. They're the stilt walkers, and their attack is a comically large kick, and I suppose because they are so high up in the air, they have a patrol bonus. I really enjoyed these guys, but they are kind of expensive. Then we have the strongman, who is a good castle defender and a glutton. And I really enjoyed this one, and I'm going to read a little bit of it for you because, God, this is so true. We all know these people, right? Despite their enormous size, strongmen are persistently disappointed in themselves, convinced that they are not nearly big enough, and that they could be much bigger if only they continue lifting. They have two important time-consuming rituals that are bulking and lifting. Anyway, fun unit. And then we finally get to our two clown units. There's just the basic clown, who is sacred and of course resistant to blunt force trauma and has some chaos power and ambidextrousness. And then finally there is the enormous clown, who has grown to enormous size, as we know, because they live for extremely long periods of time. As a direct consequence of their increased size, they are significantly funnier than ordinary clowns. Sure, a joke told by a clown will be funny, but a joke told by a 6-meter tall clown holding a pie the size of a wagon? No contest. All clowns are sacred to the people of Kirkostaculis, of course, yes. And those are the recruitable commanders and troops. As far as the sites of the capital, we have Clown College, which gives you 2 astral and recruits the 2 mage clowns, basically. Then you have the Greatest Show, which gives you 1 astral and gives you the impossible and enormous clowns. And then the Pie Factory, which gives you the 1st and 13th clown, and also allows for water and air gems. Outside of the capital, you're able to recruit basic clowns, big hats, but actually big hat's the only clown you can recruit, but all your human guys for the most part. Now, there are 4 national summon spells and 1 national enchantment, or what you would cast at another territory. The enchantment is called Mystery Performance, and what it will do is it will cause citizens in whatever province you target it to increase turmoil and unrest, but also productivity will reduce. But then we get to the summon spells. The first ones are actual units, and they are the Transcendental Clown. A Transcendental Clown is a type of celestial clown and is the physical manifestation of transcendental comedy. At the highest academic levels, clowns engage in the study of 3 extremely powerful theoretical forms of comedy: transcendental, imaginary, and sublime. Transcendental comedy is comedy that is funny despite no component part of it being funny, and it relying on a form or structure that is also not funny. Since there is no part of a transcendental joke that is funny, not the premise, structure, trope, form, subject, or anything else, it should fall flat, and yet, transcendental jokes work in spite of it being mathematically impossible for them to do so. As a field of study, transcendental comedy presents serious problems for clown scholars everywhere. Problems which are far beyond the scope of this document. Transcendental clowns themselves inspire a mixture of awe and unrest wherever they go, as transcendental comedy comes as easily to them as simple clothing does. Or simple clowning. And clown clothing, I assume. This makes them effortlessly able to turn everything that a person knows about comedy on its head. Scores of men and women are left unhinged in the wake of a transcendental clown, clutching their ribs and laughing hysterically, staring up at the cold, uncaring sky and screaming, terrified, "Why? Why can't I stop laughing? Why is this so funny? Why is this so funny?" And the awful, horrifying truth is that we have absolutely no idea. And they have the special skill of awe. That kind of separates them, and they are magical beings. Then we have the Dark Clown. The Dark Clown is actually an enchantment spell castable by your armless ladies. And they have a fear effect, fear aura, and they also are pillagers, and they increase unrest, and let me tell you why. Dark Clowns are clowns who have specialized in dark clowning, which is an advanced branch of clowning, the major skills of which are wantonness, ridicule, black humor, and mayhem. Dark Clowns revel in being edgy, and will often go way beyond the boundaries of what is funny into territory that is actually just mean, unpleasant, or offensive. Dark Clowns have no concept of bad taste, and will insist that their critics just can't take a joke, and deny that offensiveness is a real thing. Most, but not all, clowns believe that the greatest joke of all will, by definition, be funny to everybody. This has turned many clowns away from the study of dark clowning, since a dark clown's jokes will always, by definition, offend at least one person. Still, dark clowning remains a practiced art form, albeit in a much reduced capacity. Dark clowns love to usurp ordinary expectations of comic mischief, using traditional clowning objects and colorful, silly-looking tools to inflict serious bodily harm or even death. These displays can be shocking, and dark clowns consider the gorier and more over-the-top, the better. As such, dark clowns are even more resistant to physical harm than ordinary clowns, but their training can occasionally leave them with lasting physical injuries. Dark clowns put the laughter in slaughter, and also the slaughter in slaughter. And I suppose this part means that they might come out with a affliction, although this one didn't. And they are, of course, resistant to slash and pierce, as well as blunt. And then, as far as the last recruitable unit, or I should say troop unit, you have the Imaginary Clown, who is a magical being that is ethereal, has glamour, floats, can teleport, it does especially well under chaotic conditions, and has immunity from storms. It also must also be part mime, as it has an invisible box, just like the mimes. But an Imaginary Clown is a type of celestial clown and is the physical manifestation of imaginary comedy. At the highest academic levels, clowns engage in the study of three extremely powerful theoretical forms of comedy: Transcendental comedy, imaginary, and sublime. Imaginary comedy is comedy that relies on the inversion of forms and concepts that are unfunny, but have resultant inversions that either cannot actually exist in reality or simply make no sense, making them strictly theoretical. As part of an abstract modeling system, they present a way of thinking about so-called notional comedies, but this is an incredibly advanced field of study and far beyond the scope of this document. Imaginary clowns themselves are bizarre creatures who barely exist in any meaningful sense of the word. They can move wherever they like, disappear at will, and seem to be under none of the ordinary obligations of biological physiology. They are funny, to be sure, but are just as likely to induce existential angst as induce laughter. People can be left wondering about an imaginary joke years after it has been told, lying awake night after night, confused as to how a joke about the opposite of Wednesday made so much sense at the time, but now feels like some kind of dreary, half-remembered nightmare. And all of these, with the exception of the Dark Clown, can only usually be summoned by your main magic users, your ancient clowns, because they all require a combination of astral and air magic in varying degrees. And then finally, we have our last and most powerful summon, and this guy just turns everything on its head. And that is the clown Sublime. 5 air, 5 astral, 5 holy. That is 5, F-I-V-E, 5 holy, 26 research, has awe, invulnerable, it's immortal, it flies, it's an inquisitor, it is hugely inspirational, even though it doesn't have any leadership, and it is an inspiring researcher. You're going to want to get one of these, and you're going to want to get them as fast as you can. A clown sublime is a type of celestial clown and is the physical manifestation of sublime comedy. At the highest academic levels, clowns engage in the study of 3 extremely powerful theoretical forms of comedy, which we've already gone over. Sublime comedy is comedy that can be split or deconstructed an arbitrary number of times and always remains funny. That is, every constituent part of a piece of sublime comedy is itself a piece of sublime comedy. As such, it represents the purest and most mathematically perfect of all forms of comedy, and it is strongly suspected that the greatest joke of all must necessarily be Sublime. To date, there is no concrete evidence that a Sublime joke truly exists, but Bongo the Great has constructed a number of extremely compelling models that indicate potential avenues of research that may lead to one. Unfortunately, they are so advanced that even the oldest of the ancient clowns has difficulty understanding them, and they are far, far beyond the scope of this document. Clowns sublime are themselves striking creatures, and witnesses cannot help but launch into hysterics at the mere sight of them. Everything about a clown sublime is thoroughly hilarious. The way they move, the way they talk, the way they eat, the way they breathe. It's difficult just to be in the same room as one of them, and countless are the men and women who have caught sight of one and been struck mad almost, left giggling for days or even weeks at a time. One can only imagine how funny their jokes might be. Nobody can stand to listen for more than a moment to a clown sublime's act before needing to excuse themselves, gasping for breath and crying deliriously. To hear an entire joke would be all but impossible. And of course, this is my pretender, Pagliacci, the gigantic clown head, who I frankly didn't do much with. But because this is such a goofy nation, I also wanted to end with showing you a battle. And boy, this is a long showcase, but so it goes. We're going to assault Calum. Hopefully they will not move out of there, but they may. Let's see. Alright, there's a little force, but here, look at these clowns. Just keep an eye on them. In case it's not close enough, when they cast spells, their pants fall down and they blow on one of those... You know what? I don't even know what they're called. Those blower things that when you blow on them, they just stick out and make noise. Now, what this nation could really, really use is either put the magical paths on your pretender that allows them to summon a commander that has nature magic, or find a neutral nature mage, because every unit, even the clowns of this nation, has just abysmal protection, and they have really good defense. So the skills they do get, air and water, generally can give them higher defense, like spells like quickness. You know, air shield is a necessity to prevent them. These guys get slaughtered, even the clowns, by ranged units. But if you could throw a few indie nature mages in there and cast some barkskin or wooden warriors, you're really in business with this nation. Otherwise, you have to be really, really finesseful? Really with a lot of finesse. Is there a word that means lots of finesse? I don't know. But you have to be that in order to play this nation, because again, they're also incredibly weak. But typically, the spells they do have complement them well. Obviously, body ethereal, quickness, as I mentioned before, air shield. Very good skills to have. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, well, this one has gone almost 40 minutes, and I do apologize for that. My name is Marcus Aurelius. This mod, of course, is Kirkostaculis by Itsmu, and the beautiful map that I'm playing on is Seaside Valley by Dalloway. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.